Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a confession of a message that I received, and it reads like this. Hello, Brother Nasha, how are you? Can you please post my story as hidden identity? I am a man that is aged 36 years old, currently staying here in Gauteng. I have come here with my confession of the things that we did when we were desperate to get the gold that we wanted, and my boss as well was the one that I used to feel sorry for because he was paying a lot of money to the Lesotho syndicate so that he can pay for the rentals so that we can be able to dig up for the gold. I did not start being a Zama in South Africa, even though when I was still in high school back home in Zim, we used to go and dig up for the gold. The reason as to why I ended up coming to South Africa, this was after we had worked 4 months under the ground, and then when we got to the point where we now had found the gold, then the people that I was working with, they were much older than I was. They kicked me out of the syndicate, and then they divided the money amongst themselves. I was afraid that they would kill me, so I ran to South Africa and I started working. First of all, I started working for a security company. The owner, he was from Venda, even though the company, it was in Joburg. When I would go and to guard people's homes, I ended up guarding this house which belonged to my boss. It was in the estates. There was no one really that was staying there, so I was like a gardener as well as a security guard. So his young brother and I, we became like friends. Whenever you would come to check up on the house, we would talk a lot. Then one day when we were having a conversation, I told him that I used to be an illegal gold miner in Zim, and I did not know that my boss was heavily involved in that business as well. When I told him this, he was so interested and he asked me a lot of questions, and he saw that indeed I was telling him the truth. He then told me that he had spoken with his brother and he wanted me to work for his brother's syndicate, and I started working for his brother, and I discovered that in South Africa, the way that the syndicates work, it is really different from the way that the syndicates in Zim work, because in Zim, it is all about survival and giving each other an equal opportunity to dig up for the gold. But here in South Africa, if a syndicate says that this is our mine, if you are found there, they will shoot you on the spot. So as we were working, we were always being harassed under the ground. Do you know that under the ground in Gauteng, wherever there are illegal gold miners digging up for the gold, you can find hundreds and hundreds of dead people, either from Zim or from Lesotho. Some of them, when they are working, a rock can fall on you and you die. There is no one that is going to take you out. And mainly the gangs from Lesotho, they fight against each other. And because they always have guns, unlike us from Zim and those guys that are from Bulawayo, usually they don't use guns. We only were using knives to fight with each other, using knives but not guns. But the Lesotho gang, even when they are underground, they can even say that they want to play a song using guns down there, and it will be very scary if it happens that you are working close to the Lesotho gang, and wherever they have worked, you will find that there will be dead bodies under there. There was even one time when we were digging up at this other mining shaft close to where we were busy digging up, there were 2 dead bodies of men that had died under the ground, and we just covered them with some rocks because we just did not want to keep on looking at them. So when my boss told me that he was being forced to pay rent on his mine, that he said it was his, he was the first one to open that mine after it had been closed for a very long time, I just felt sorry for my boss, and I told him about my uncle who was a traditional healer, whom I knew very well that he helps people to do money rituals. So once you get to that point, mostly the Zamas from Lesotho, they would come and then they would claim and say that this is our working area and you are not allowed to dig up for the gold anymore in this area. So this was giving us a lot of problems, and we also wanted to survive, and we also wanted to work just like the way that they were working. But it was really difficult since our syndicate, we did not have any guns because we were working with some other guys who were like the owners of the place, but not like the real owners, just being a syndicate that started digging up for the gold there. Those guys, they were from Bulawayo in Kwanda, to be specific. So they were the ones that had hired us. Then one day I approached our boss and I told him about some of the things that I knew that were being done in the village from where I come from. If you want to dig up for gold, you have to ask the ancestors to give you the gold. He then agreed because he said that he had been making a lot of losses because the syndicate from Lesotho had been forcing him to pay them. It's like rent. If you want to dig up for the gold there, then you pay them for rent. And if they find you digging up for the gold, they harass you as well. So he said that he was going to appreciate it if it happened that I had someone that I knew that could assist us. I then spoke with one of my uncles who was a traditional healer, but he ended up helping us with the help as well of another Sangoma, because what my uncle had said that he said that he wanted us to go to Zim, but the problem with my boss was that he had an asylum and he was not allowed to return back to Zim. He was afraid that once he returned back to Zim, because he had been involved in politics, maybe they were going to arrest him. And he was asking me if it was possible for my uncle to come to South Africa. Then my uncle said, no, I can't come. You have to come to Zim. But if you can find another traditional healer, if we connect in the spirit, then I can possess his body and I can use him to help you. But it will require a lot of money, because the same money that you're going to pay me, that is the same amount that you're going to pay that traditional healer from South Africa. We then looked for one man, and that man was the one that assisted us. And my uncle then told us that we were supposed to look for a human skull in order for the ancestors to give us all the rich minerals that were underneath the earth. What was required was a human skull, and we were supposed to put human blood on that human skull in order for the earth to give us the gold. It was something that I had never thought of in my entire life, but I ended up telling my boss, but I was afraid to tell him because he was going to refuse, because this man, he was a church-going man, even though he was involved in these Zama things, but he used to go to church. When I told him, he then said, no, it's fine, let us just do it. We have already started with the process, so let us just do it. I just want to see if it is going to work. We spoke with the traditional healer. So that man, he was a South African man that had never been to Zim in his entire life. But the moment that my uncle's spirit will possess him, he will start to speak with me like he was my uncle, and we would communicate in Shona, because I also speak Shona, and he would tell me everything what was supposed to be done. One day, we then went to this other mine shaft, and he had told us that there was a body underground, and it was a body of a man who was 19 years old. He had came to South Africa, and he had spent less than 4 months in South Africa, and he was killed under the ground. So what was supposed to be done was that we were supposed to go and cut off his head. We had to buy a saw. We went to this other hardware and we bought a saw, which was a green saw, the ones that they use to cut the branches of a tree. I still remember because I was the one that went with this other guy. We then bought the saw, and the man that I was with, he did not even know why we were buying that saw. We went underground. It was me and my boss's young brother, and then there was another guy as well who was representing the Sangoma that was with us. So my boss and the Sangoma, they were in the car whilst we went down into that mining shaft. We walked, when we were underground, we walked for several meters, and then the smell hit us like there was something that was decaying. And we walked until we reached the place where we saw the dead body. You know, when someone has died, it's like you become like a balloon before you explode. So that is what we saw, the body of that guy. We even saw his ID. I even wanted to take his ID so that I can just throw it somewhere. But the people that I was with, they said, no, we're not going to take anything that belongs to him, because I wanted his ID to be out so that he can be identified, just in case if his relatives were going to look for him, then maybe it was going to be helpful. But we were told to leave everything. We then started cutting the human head. It is not an easy thing to cut the head of a person, even if that person is already dead. I don't know how many times that I vomited. Even my boss's young brother, he was vomiting as well. But the man who was representing the Sangoma, he did not vomit because he was possessed by that spirit. So he was even laughing. He was the one who ended up finishing the job, and he was really possessed at that time, because he even kicked the head of that man as if he was playing football. This happened when we were underground. And then he took the human head and he threw it into a plastic bag. It was a Spar plastic bag that he had in his pocket. He then took it and he threw it inside. He gave it to me, and I was vomiting by then. And we came back and we went to the car. We gave it to the Sangoma. So then the Sangoma then said that the job was not over. It was supposed to be done on that very same night. Rather Nashi, the things that we will do for money, these people, when they see you driving a nice car, they will think that you just became rich just by becoming a Zama, but they do not know some of the things that you had to go through. So this head of that man, we were told to skin it, to remove the skin, even though it was already decaying, but we had to remove the skin. In this skin, it was supposed to be cooked, and we were supposed to eat that skin. And I asked the Sangoma why, since I was the one that would translate everything that was being said by my uncle. My uncle then said that kuti musazotevererwa ka nemweya wemufi, kasi kuda kuteverwa nemweya wengozi. In English, he meant that if we were not going to eat the skin of that man, then his spirit was going to hound us. He would say, you found me where I had been killed, and then you cut off my head, and after that you ate my skin. So we had to eat his skin in order for his spirit to get lost, so that it will never be able to hound us, to locate us. So the Sangoma then said that we had to peel off the skin from the skull, including the hair. We then started doing that. It was not easy, but by then, everything that had happened, it was just satanic, from cutting off his head and now removing his skin. I guess that maybe my body was now getting used to it, because I remember when it was my chance to remove the skin, I started from the nose going up, because all of us, we had to do it, giving each other the chance to do it. So as for me, I removed the skin starting from the nose up to the forehead, and I removed the skin and I put it to the side. My boss, he removed the hair. Then the Sangoma, he then took out the ears. After that, that was when the Sangoma started washing the skull in a bucket, and the water, including the bucket as well, it was thrown into that shaft. And then he just lit a small fire and he started to dry that skin so that it can be dry. No salt, nothing. And it was given to us, and we were told that we had to eat everything. It was not an easy thing to do. As for me, as I was eating that dried flesh, I was walking, because just standing in one position, I would think about what we had done, and we had been told not to vomit because this was the step that was very important. Once you vomit, then the ritual was not going to work. So our boss told us that, gents, we are not going to find another body tonight. I don't want anyone to vomit, otherwise I'm going to shoot you. And once I shoot you, we use your head. So I had to tell myself that I'm doing this for my children, for my future, so that I can enjoy a better life. So we then ate the flesh, and after that, then the human skull was given to my boss, and my boss was then told to cut himself with a knife on his finger, and he squeezed the blood on that skull, including his young brother, and I was the last one who did the ritual. And the human skull, it was taken and it was dumped somewhere, but I heard that they had to burn it first, and then they dumped the ashes in the bushes, so that anyone who will walk past that place will pick up the spirit of that man, so that he can follow that person for the rest of his life. So my boss's young brother told me that they had to drive to another province, in a village where they knew that no matter what, they will never return back to that village, and it will be impossible for us to ever meet the people from that village, because that is what we were told, that anyone that would have passed through the place where they had sprinkled the ashes from that human skull that had been burned by the Sangoma, then that person will be followed by the spirit of this man that we found underground. But if it happens that one day you come across that person, then the spirit of that man that we found underground will say, those are the people that took my head. So I don't think that we'll ever be able to meet those people, because my boss's young brother said that they drove to this very remote village in the most remote part of that province, and that was where they dumped the ashes. They had to find like a road in the bushes where they saw that this is a road which is used mostly by people that will be heading their cows. And they found a place where two of those roads met, and that was where they dumped the ashes. And they ran away from that place as quickly as possible, got into the car, and they drove to Joburg without looking back whilst they were still in that village. Otherwise, the spirit of that man will start to follow them. When they came back, my brother, miracles started to happen. You know, gold is very hard to find, especially in South Africa, because they were using like machines to dig up for the gold. So any place where there used to be like a big mine, it is very hard to find a lot of gold. You only find grams, you can never find a kg of gold. But after this ritual was performed, one day when we were underground, it was our syndicate, but in our syndicate, it was only me and my boss's young brother who knew about the things that we had done. So there was this other guy that we were with, because we were told that the person that is going to find the gold the first time after this ritual, he would run mad for the rest of his life. So when we were underground, this other guy that I was with, he was the one who picked up, it was not a very big rock, but it was heavy. That rock, it was close to 700 grams. He just screamed, and we rushed to where he was busy chiseling on the side of the rock. We then got out of the shaft and we went to our boss's house. We started to celebrate, and my boss gave him a lot of money. We knew that he was going to start losing his mind very soon. He then went to Pretoria to visit his girlfriend, and he started losing his mind. He started to remove his clothes and he started running, and people, they did not know where he was headed to, and people, they did not know what had happened really. So I don't know if he is still alive or if he has since passed away. From there on, we started making money and we started making money. But people, they do not know that sometimes when you succeed in life, you have to go through all of this horrific stuff in order for you to make money. it angers me, especially when I see someone coming to me saying that they want money, they want to start a business because I have money. Maybe if I can give them money, they can start a better business. But what they do not know is that I also had to suffer to be where I am right now. Yo, dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear brother. That was the narration of his message. Strange things indeed, they do happen in this world. Yo.